All right. Good morning. We left off. We got a little bit ahead. Now we're a little bit behind because we lost 2 blot. So Yud Aleph is actually yesterday's blot. Yud Beis is today. So we're going to try and get to Yud Beis, even hopefully Mr. Shem to the page. So let's see how it goes. So Hidla Allah es Hagefen, we're in the Mishnah on Yud Aleph and Aleph. 24 lines from the top. And I just made that up. I don't know. So Hidla Allah es Hagefen, Ves Dlas, Ves Ha Kisus, right? Kisus? Vesicha Chal Gabo. I can see there's a Samach Mem. My eyes are like waking up. All right. Vesicha Chal Gabo Psula. So one who goes ahead and he lowers down upon it vines or gourds or something that's going for the ground or grapevines, and he uses that as schach, right? He has the proper walls, and then he lowers it down to be a schach psula. If, however, he had a lot of kosher schach, right, that we'll soon see that something which is attached to the ground is not kosher for schach, right? Someone's mechuber lekarka cannot be said. That's the psul in these vines, right? But if he has other types of schach, which is good, which is a majority of it, and it'll be mevatel that, or he puts the vines on and then he cuts it, right? So imagine you put the vine on and then you snip it from the bottom, and all of a sudden it's detached from the ground. And Zaklav is the rule. Anything which is makabel tuma, let's say like clothing, right? Or food, right? Those items are makabel tuma, metal, right? Those are makabel tuma. Those cannot be used as chak, and also if it did not grow from the ground. However, something which is not makabel tuma, right? Let's say leaves, right? Those are not makabel tuma, right? Then, and they have to grow from the ground. Then besachimbo, you can use it as schach. Zok the Gemara. Yasin Rav Yosef came to Rav Huna of Yosef Kamar Oshkatzam Kshera. So he taught that which it says in Mishnah, the second part, right? Not only a majority, but also if he cuts it, if he cuts the vines, if he cuts the ivy, right? Then it's Kshera. Here comes the machloikas. Sarich lenaneh. You have to go ahead and move it. In other words, you're putting it down, okay? And then you cut it. The issue is you didn't put it on as schach. It was put on, it was puzzle, it was no good.
But it's fruit.
There's no fruit. Let's say not fruit. Yeah, but just the leaves. Just the leaves. Right. And then you cut it, right? So then you cut it. So we say in that case, it's no good, right? So there's the issue of that the halach is tasav l'minasui, right? You have to go ahead and make your sukkah, and it can't be made on its own. So when you're cutting it, you're sort of making it on its own. There's no maisa there. So says Rav, tzarich l'naneh. You got to go ahead, basically pick up the branches, right? The vines that were recently cut, just lift it up in the air, put it right back down. Now you basically placed it upon it as kosher schach. It's good. And Amar Le Rav Huna Shmuel Obra. So he said, Shmuel said this. So Rav Yosef turned to him. Amar Le Atumi Kamida Lecha Dilo Amra Shmuel. Right? Did I tell you the Shmuel and said Amar Rav Amar Shmuel? Okay, Rav said it and Shmuel said it. What do you hack me a trinik? Right? So Amar Le, no. Amar Le Rav Huna Kamida Lecha. This is what I meant to say. The Shmuel Amra Shmuel was the one who said this, that you have to go ahead and replace it on it. V'lo Rav, and Rav did not say that. Why? The Rav actually machshir, because we'll see Rav machshir it. Kiha the Rav Abraham Chasida one time is the Rav Chasida Rama Tchilas Parzuma Din Shibese. One time it happened to be that he took basically his wife's. He held that even that the mitzvah tzitzis is not considered to be a mitzvah seishas man grama, right? It was not caused by time. In other words, even night is this man of tzitzis. If that's the case, women are chayiv. So basically, he took his one of his wife's clothing, but that's just that's not important for the case. And talon v'lei pasuk roishei chutin shalahet. What happened? He took a long string and he folded it over several times and he put it through the tzitzis. So instead of putting 4 strings through, right, and then tying them, he put a long string and it wasn't cut. And also, so as like Reb Chia Barashi. And I'm like, Hachi Amarav. Go ahead and just cut the ends, right? Now imagine if something is folded over and you cut it, it's like it's 2, right? So if you fold it over, 4 times and you cut it at the end, it will now basically turn into 4 strings, right? So if you go ahead and you cut it, it's kosher, okay? It's kosher, even though it was placed on while it was no good because it was 1 string, and then you cut it, now it's kosher. Same thing as you bend over the vines on top of the sukkah, and then you cut it, now it's kosher. So you see, Rav didn't require pulling out the strings and putting them back in as separate strings. He says just you can cut it as that's okay. I'm really talking about the Hank Sharon's Alma. What do you see over here? The cutting of it is the asiyah, right? In other words, the maisa of putting it on, right? The maisa of putting it back in, or the maisa of taking the schach and putting it back on. You don't need that maisa because you already have a maisa of cutting it. Once I cut it, it's like a new maisa. It's like I'm putting on kosher schach. And hakanami, so it's over the case of the sukkah, right? Cutting it is the asiyah. Now, Gora asks, so Shmuel holds the other way. It's no good. But Shmuel lo amrin b'skasan zoy asiyasa. By Shmuel holds it's not good. But Tana Shmuel mishum Reb Chia he till shnei karanas basachas. One who goes ahead and he has a 4-quarter garment and he puts basically 1 string in the 2 corners. Right, 1 string in 2 corners, and then he cuts it. So basically, it's 1 string. Then he cuts it. Now it's separate strings, and now it's okay. Share it. That works. So no, according to Shmuel, who holds that you need to do an asiyah afterwards, Shmuel would say you have to take it out and put it back in. So my love, is that talking about where first he tied the knots as tzitzis, and then he cut them to disconnect them to make it kosher. And afterwards he cut it. Lo, he cut it first. In other words, yes, he put it in the 2 corners as 1 string. Then he cut it, and then he tied it. So if he put it in, right? If he just put it in the corners and then he cut it and then he tied them properly for kosher tzitzis, what's the chiddush here? So Maltemo just said, maybe you have to go ahead and you need it. To when you go ahead and you put in the corners, it has to be a single string, right? And you don't have that here because you have a double string and then you just cut it. Kamash Malon, that's okay. So Meisve, top line in Yud Aleph and Beis, Tolan Boy Pasak. If he goes ahead and he puts on tzitzis, right? He puts it in, he folds it over multiple times, but it's only 1 string. Pasak Rashi Chutin Shalahan, and it wasn't cut. Psulit, it's puzzle, right? Because it's 1 string, and even if you cut it. So my lap doesn't mean that it's puzzle forever. Now, even if you cut it, it's no good because it lacks an asiyah. Utiyufta derav, therefore it's a kashan rav who says you don't need a further asiyah. No, my no, it means it's puzzle right now is 1 string. If you cut it, that's considered a asiyah. It would be okay. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says, no, it's puzzle forever. If you just cut it, you have to remove it and then put it back in. Amar Levi, so to Levi says, unless you go ahead and rethread it. Amar Rav Masna, Amar Shmuel, so to Rav Masna, the name of Shmuel, that's Psulim Li'elam. And Ika Da'amri, some have a different version of this Gemara. Amar Rav Masna, says Rav Masna, one time this mice happened to me when I had basically 1 long string. It was folded over multiple times in a corner of a baguette. And I said it was puzzle forever. In other words, that even if you cut it, it's no good. And if you go ahead and fold it over and afterwards, right, you cut it, you cut the ends. Psulin, it's puzzle. And similarly, we learn Gabi Sukkah, Tasav Limin Asui, right? So too we learn by a sukkah. You have to go ahead and make the sukkah, and it can't be sort of made. As retro, like back-ended. In other words, when you go ahead and you put your schach on, it has to be kosher, right? As opposed to, right, another example with this would be Tasman Asui. You have your schach on without walls. Then you go ahead and you place walls there, right? That could be an issue of Tasman Asui. Because when you place the schach, when you tasa, when you do the action, that has to be made, it has to be kosher. But you can't do the action and then make it kosher afterwards. So also Gabi Sukkah, Tasik Masui. So Mekan from here we say, which are halacha and Mishnah, he does a gefa and vesed belas kisus. One goes ahead and he folds over grapevines or gourds or ivy, the sicha kal gaban, and then he puts schach with it, but he has all the other ones. Psula, it's no good. So hey chidami, what's the case there? If over there we're talking about a case where he didn't cut it all, Ma'ir Mishun Tasik Masui. Why do you say because he didn't cut it? That's the reason why it's puzzle, right? It's not because of tasav elamin asui. Typically, the mechubal ninu. Answer it. If he never cuts it off the ground, it's mechubal lakarka. It's attached to the ground, and that's the reason why it's not kosher schach. Ela b'shekatsan. Rather, it must be talking about a case where he does indeed it. He folds it over, and then he cuts the vines from the bottom. V'ktani psula, and it says over there, ushmami no deloyim. It says yasan. Right, and we can learn from here that just merely cutting it, it still remains puzzle, and therefore the cutting it is not considered the action of making the schach, and therefore it's yuf to the Rab, and therefore it'll be a kasha and Rab, because Rab holds that just cutting it is considered the action. So Rab, hachamaiskinan, the shalfinu shlufe deleminkara asiya ditu. Over here, we're talking about a case of where it's folded over, that even if you cut it, it's not recognizable. Since it's not recognizable, that it still appears to be attached to the ground. Therefore, that's the reason why it's puzzle. Now, it's not a puzzle midarai. So it'll be a gzeira because it doesn't appear to be separated from the ground. We call Ma'akom, nevertheless, the case of the tzitzis, Talam Achaga Pazla Kasha, the Rav. So, nevertheless, the case of when it was attached to the ground, right? Excuse me, sorry. When it goes to that case of the tzitzis, when he folds over the tzitzis, and afterwards he cuts it to make it multiple strings, right? Nevertheless, that is no good. So that's a kasha and Rav, because according to Rav, you just cut it. It's okay. So the Gemara says, yes, and Achanami, you're right, kasha. Fine. Leina kitanoi. Let's say the following is the machlokes tonight. Ovar v'litan puzzle. We have a halacha later on when it comes to, I believe it's the hadassim, that the hadassim has to be there. It is a fruit tree. There are berries that grow with the hadassim, and there can't be the berries on the hadassim. They go on the lulav. So normally it's no good. So let's say a person takes it. He takes his lulav and puts it together. Right, he comes out the first morning of Sukkot. All of a sudden he realizes he has berries on it. So then he plucks off the berries. So it wasn't supposed to. Avar, right? He plucks them on yantef elikton puzzle. Divi Rebbe Shimon bar Yotzadik. Chachamim machshir. The Chachamim say it's a kosher lulav. So similar to kol yalma lulav tzrich egen. We want to say that everyone holds that there's a halacha that you need egen. You need to go ahead and put all of the arba minim together. You have to hold them together, right? You can't have them separately, right? Two in this hand, two in this hand, right? And you shake it like this. You can't do that, right? You have to put it together. That's called egen, right? You have to bring them together. So everyone holds you have to bring them together. Now, when it was brought together, the berries are on it, and then he removed the berries after they were ready together. Similar, right, to our cases of sukkah, right? You have your sukkah, it's no good, and then you do some quote-unquote detaching or cutting to make it good, right? So it's over here. He removed the berries to make it good after he brought it together. So the alfinan lulav misukah, and we should learn lulav, the halachas of lulav misukah. The pasuk says, "Gabi sukkah tasav l'manasui." You have to make your sukkah, and it shouldn't be right. It shouldn't be something that was already done, right? My lab hakamifki. Let's say there's a machlokes here. The man, the machshir, the one over there who says he pulled the berries. The chachamim say it's so good. Savram rinan gabi sukkah kitzitzasan zoyis yasan. That just cutting by the sukkah makes the kosher. So too, removing the berries, even though after it was already placed together and you didn't bring them together, as kosher, you brought them together as not kosher, then you just removed it. Zoyis yasan. That's considered to be, so cutting is merely an asiyah. The gabi lulav nami amrina k'titasan zoyis yasan. So too, by the lulav, we would say that detaching is considered an asiyah, and you don't have to do a further ma'isa of igud, of bringing it together. Uman the puzzle. And the opinion over there, Rabbi Shimon bar Yotzadek, who says it's no good. Savar, they say by sukkah, just cutting is not good enough. You have to, lift up the schach and put it back on as kosher schach. The gabi lulav nami, so too by the lulav, right? We would also we would not say that just removing the berries is good enough. You have to go ahead, and if you remove the berries, very nice. Separate the arba minim and bring it back together as 4 kosher species. The Gemara says, no, maybe that's not the machlokes. Maybe it's another machlokes there. Maybe everyone agrees, right? By sukkah, just cutting is not good enough because it says tasav limon asui. The hacha, the milef lulav misukkah. And over here, the question is, do we learn the halachas from lulav from sukkah? Man de machshir, the one who says it's good. Savar lo yafin lulav misukkah. The lulav doesn't have the requirements of sukkah. Sukkah has the requirement of tasav limon asui. right? You have to make it, when you put the skach on, you're making it a kosher sukkah, as opposed to, you build a sukkah that afterwards you make it kosher. That's no good. But when lulav, there is no issue. You bring the arba minim together and then you make it kosher, that's fine. Man the puzzle, and the one that says no good, he holds that when you make the lulav, when you bring the arba minim together, you have to make it you have to bring them together in a kosher way, just like in a sukkah. When you put on the skach, it has to be done, has to be a kosher sukkah. Or if you boy sema, or you can say another star. If you hold it, lulav tzrich aged, that lulav has to be required. Everyone learns if you hold the daled minim have to be all brought together. Then everyone holds that lulav is just like sukkah. However, over here, what's the machlekes? Mar savar tzrich aged. Mar savar in tzrich aged. One who holds it has to be brought together. And the chachamim say machshir. They hold actually there is no requirement. You just have to have the arba minim. You don't have to bring them together. You just have to make the bracha and have the arba minim. You don't have to do the igud holding them together. Tonight, which would be machlekes of the following tonight. The Tanya will learn in Raisa lulav. Bein eged, bein shena eged, kosher. Lulav, whether they're brought together or whether they're not brought together, you shake them, it's kosher. Agud, kosher. Shena agud, puzzle. No, if you do it together, right, then it's kosher. But if you don't bring them together, it's no good, right? You separate your arba minim, it's no good. So my time in the Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason according to Rabbi Yehuda? Yolif lekicha mi agudas esov. He learns a gzeir shava of lekicha agudas esov. It says over there, by Yetzias Mitzrayim, they're commanded to take the hyssop branch with the blood and put them on the doorposts, right? So it's use a lashon of lakicha by agudas ezov. Ksiv hasam lakachtem agudas ezov. It says over there you have to take them agudas ezov. Ksiv hachav lakachtem lachem b'yom harishon. It says it there by the dalaminim. The lakachtem to take on the yom harishon. Just like over there, you had to bring the species together. And what was that? Just looking at the Rashi, right? I guess over there, whatever was, I guess the blood and the hyssop, right? The aguda, right, had to be brought. The agudas ezov had to be brought together. Afkan nami kaguda. So to over here, it has to be also brought together.
There was a bundle of the azos that they had to be tied.
They had the bundle of the azos had to be tied together with the blood. Like kachtem agudas azov, right? Okay, yeah. But Rabbanan and Rabbanan, the Rabbanan do not have a tradition of learning this gzeira shava of lakicha of lulav from agudas azov, and therefore they don't learn it. So kaman azla hadatanya. So who does this following price go like? Lulav mitzvah laogdo laogdo kasher. Right, lulav, it's a mitzvah, right? Lechatchila, the best way to do it is to bring them together. But if not, then it's still kosher. So, Rabbi Yehuda, if it's according to Rabbi Yehuda, kilogdu amai kosher. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it sounds like b'diavad because he learns the gzer shava that you need to bundle them together, just like Akuda says so. So too, you have to go ahead and bring these together, the arba minim together. And Rabban, if you hold like the Rabbanan who don't learn the gzer shava, my mitzvah. Why is there a mitzvah to bring them together? Right? It's no shaychus. Right? It just says, take the arba minim. We don't need them together. So the other Rabbanan, really it's Rabbanan. He's not the fun of the mitzvah. So in other words, no, because the pasuk of right, this is the mitzvah, and I shall beautify it. So therefore, bringing them together is a beautification of the mitzvah. So therefore, the Akud is not out the gzera shava of lakicha. Rather, it's to beautify the mitzvah arba minim by bringing the four minim together. Fine. 2 dots around 8-9 lines from the bottom. Zeklal kol davar shemekabel tuma. So our Mishnah states the halachas of schach. Right? Schach says is something which can't be mekabel tuma. Right? It can't be something that becomes tameh, clothing, food, right, metal, right, those type of objects, earthenware, right. However, something which grows, right, something which, and also it has to be something which grows on the ground. So Minani Mili, from where do you know this from? So Amar Reish Lakish Amar Kar, the pasuk says. So the pasuk from Bereshis, it says over there, the Eid Yalam in Oretz, the Ishkas Kol Pnei Ha'adama. Right, so it says over there, right, there was like a mist, right, that came from the ground, right. So just like the sun which and came from the ground. So too, sukkah davar shemekabel tuma v'gilu min aretz. So too, the sukkah right, is similar to that is something is not makabel tuma and it's go from the ground.
The aid is a gidulei karka.
So right, so it's the mist, right?
That's not a gidulei.
So Rashi says, right? So there's a couple stretches here. That's the first one, right? So it says over there, all right. So it says over there, right? Because we're going to learn that according to one opinion, that the sukkah was actually a nani akafah, right? It was a cloud, it was a mist, and that sort of, it rose from the ground. So if it rose from the ground, then it's considered to be gidulei karka. So Gemara says, this works well according to the one. Okay, the sukkahs that we had post Mitzrayim, right in the Midbar, that was Anani Akavod. So that was the aid, that was the mist, that was the Anani. So that is something which is goes from the ground, right? But according to the opinion who holds that they were mamish in huts, what are you going to say there? The Tanya, where do you see this? I guess that we learn in the Brisa. Pasuk says, "Ki b'sukkah is shafti as b'nei Yisrael." So it says over there in Sukkot that's the Bnei Yisrael dwelled in. So Anani Akavod Hayu. Divi Rabbi Eliezer says Rabbi Eliezer they were the Anani Akavod. And Rabbi Kiva Omer Sukkot Mamish. They were Mamish huts. Asulahem. All right, that's what they were made for them. So Nicola Rabbi Eliezer. This works like on Rabbi Eliezer who holds. Okay, that's the aid. It's the mist. It's something which comes from the ground. It's not Makabel Tuma. Okay, you have a source. Ela Rabbi Kiva Ma'ik L'Meimer. According to Rabbi Kiva, what is the source to have this type of schach? So Kiyasa Rav Dimi Rabbi Yechanan Amar Kar, the pasuk says Chag Hasukos Taseh Lecha. It says there Chag, right, like from the word. So like we did this before, Chagiga, right? Chag Hasukos Taseh Lecha. Makish Sukkah Lechagiga. We learn Sukkah Lechagiga. Ma Chagiga Davar She'enu Makabel Tuma. Just like an animal, a live animal is something it is not Makabel Tuma. Animals don't become tummy, right? People come tummy, not animals, unless they're dead, right? The Gedulah Min Aretz. And it grows from the ground. Here's the other stretch, right? Why is it? How's the animal from the karka? Because it nourishes from the ground. Since it nourishes from the ground, it's considered it comes from the ground. So to the sukkah, the schach that has to be upon the sukkah has to be just like a chag, right? Chag a sukkah. So to that which we cover the sukkah should be davar which is not makabel tuma and gidul menaris. Where it says if that's the case, ma chagiga balechayim. If that's the case, then just like the chagiga is an animal, so too you should be able to go ahead and have your schach be dogs and cats. So Kiyasa Rabbi Rabbi Yechanan Amakar, the pasuk says no, another pasuk which is the end source. So the pasuk says bi'asbicha mi garncha mi kevecha. So as the pasuk says over there, right, that you should go ahead and gather it, right, from your threshing floor and from your vats, right, from your wine vats. So kipsolas garden the ikav hakasim adav. So it's talking about the psolas, right, the leftovers, the residue, the stuff that comes after, the empty seeds or whatever it is, or the vines, the leaves, and those things, the sticks that come from there. So right, maybe it's the that which we thresh itself, or the wine itself. So Reb Zera Yikok Ksiv Khan says over there the vat the Efshar the Sachiboy, right? Can't go ahead and have how you can have wine cover your sukkah. So Maskal Rabbi Yirmiyah the Emayai and Karush Haba Misnir. What about this like congealed wine that comes from snir? It's like a pressed fig cake, which is like a salad. And so you can go ahead and put that on top, right? You can't have a liquid on top. You can have a salad on top, right? So Rabbi Zera, Hamilsa, right? We had a good source until he came and chopped it with an axe. Yeah, it's good kasha. So why isn't it taka maybe congealed wine or something like that? So Ashi Amar, no. Look at the pasuk. It says Megarncha from your garden, like garden atzmo, right? From your garden, from the threshing floor, but not the threshing floor itself. Right? And from the vat, not the wine itself, but the leftover, the sediment that comes from there. And Rav Chizda says, I have another pasuk. The pasuk not from Chumash, pasuk in Nehemiah. It says, "Tu hahar v'aviyu alei zayis v'alei eitz shemen v'alei hadas v'alei tamar v'alei eitz avos." So go ahead and bring the leaves, from olives, from oil, from hadassim, from dates, and from eitz avos. So where says Hainu hadas, Hainu eitz avos? What do you mean? Right? the Eitz Avos, right, is referred to the willow branch, right? Right, it's the willow that we use, right? The Eitz Avos, Hainu Hadas, right, or the myrtle, not the willow, right? Willow's the Aravos, right? So it says Eitz Avos, Hainu Hadas, Hainu Eitz Avos. Rab Chisa, no Hadas, Sheit L'Sukkah, a non-kosher Hadas. If the leaves aren't 3x3, those are the ones that you put on your sukkah. Right? The Eitz Avos, the lulav. And the Eitz Avos is referring to the myrtle that's used for lulav. So we see that what is used on the sukkah, leaves, right? Leaves are placed in the sukkah. So we see from this pasuk that leaves are something that grows from the ground, something that's not makabel tumah. That's what you cover your sukkah with. But anything else, if it didn't originally come from the ground, or if it's makabel tumah, or if it's still attached to the ground, all those things you cannot use as your schach. Fine. Now your Mishnah says, Chavile kash, the chavile eitzim, the chavile zardin. The person goes ahead, he has a bundle of straw, of wood, of some sort of zardin, sugarcane or something like that. Ein misachin bahen. You have a big bundle, right? Big bundle, it's all together. You put it on top, you can't be misachit. The kulan sheitiran, but if you untie it, right, and you let the schach come on, be covered, then it's kosher. So you can't have a tied bundle on top. We'll soon see why. The kulan ksheros of the fanas, but all of these are okay for walls, right? There is no requirement for the walls. It works as walls. It's just the issue of having kosher schach. So Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Zok the Gemara says Rabbi Yaakov Shmamina Rabbi Yochanan Tarti, right? So Rabbi Yochanan he heard two halachas. Chadaha, first halacha was ours in terms of that you can't go ahead and use bundles as your schach. The idach, another one, one who goes that he's a big haystack and he goes over there and he carves out right inside the haystack like a little sukkah, right? Imagine like a big snowstorm. The kids go ahead and make their little, their little igloo, right? They dig out all the snow on the inside. They dig out all the hay on the inside, and say, oh look, there's the straw over my head because I dug a bit hole there. Ain't no sukkah, does not work. It's a Mishnah later on. Chad mishum gezeras oitzer. One of these cases, right? Two cases are bundle on top, and the other case is tasav l'minasu. Now, one of them is a gezeras oitzer. Gezeras oitzer is what? A person goes ahead and he's carrying a bundle, and he wants to go ahead and put it down. He puts it, on something which is, 15 tefachim off the ground. It's on his shoulder. He puts it on there, and then all of a sudden, sukkah's coming around, and he goes, "Oh, I'll go ahead and use this sukkah." So that was never put on l'shem sale. It's never put on for the purpose of shade, for the purpose of the mitzvah of sukkah, and therefore it would not qualify. So if we allow a person to go ahead and use a bundle, right, that's tied up, people might use bundles that were placed on walls that were never placed there for the purpose of schach. That is called gzeras oitzer, right? It's a decree because of oitzer, which is only a derabbanan. And the other reason for one of these cases is tasav l'manasu, right? That first the sukkah was made and then you made it kosher, right? So v'lo yadinu hay minayu, mishum oitzer v'hay minayu mishum tasav l'manasu. And I don't know which one of these cases aser midrabanan because of gzeras oitzer, and which one of these are actually pasal midaraisa from tasav l'manasu. So Rabbi Yirmiyah. Let me see the Amar Rabbi Chia Barav. I heard Rabbi Chia Barav say Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What's the reason why I heard you can't go ahead and use bundles? Why? Because sometimes people come for the field. They're in the evening in the Chavir Sak Seifa, and they'll be holding the bundles in their head. And he goes ahead and puts in the walls in order they should dry out further so he can sell them. Then afterwards he says, you know what? Sukkah's coming out. I'll just have it be my sukkah. And the Torah says over there, the Torah says, in that case, that is a violation of tasav l'minasui if you actually do that. But to use bundles in a regular case, if I just go put a bundles, the shem schach, that's no good because it is a gzeras oitzer. In other words, it's only saying we're worried about the case where he places it on top of walls as rest, because that would violate tasav and lasur. But meaning that you can't do it, that's a gzera. That in itself, you're saying is a gzera. So midhamishum gzeras oitzer. Now, by the fact that the reason why you can't do this is because of gzeras oitzer, I'm going to get to the halfway down on the midhamishum gzeras oitzer. So therefore, if this case is gzeras oitzer, it must be the other case of digging out a haystack is mishum tasav masui, right? That first you basically you made your schach, and then only afterwards, right, you had the big haystack there, right? And then you dug it out, and basically you made walls underneath it, right? Rabbi Yaakov, but Rabbi Yaakov never heard that which Rabbi Chia taught. So Rav Ashi, atu chavile kash v'chavile eitzim mishum gzeres eitzer. Ika mishum tasav l'masui leka. What do you mean? The case of the bundles, right? It's only because of gzeres eitzer. It's not because of tasav l'masui, right? We just said before that if he goes ahead and he puts it on there, and then he decides for this to become my sukkah, it's a violation of tasav l'masui. So it's all connected. And when it goes ahead and digs out a haystack, mishum tasav l'masui, ika mishum gzeres eitzer leka. It's only a violation of tasav l'masui, but there is no gzeres eitzer that if you allow him to go ahead and dig out a haystack, perhaps people might use bundles as their schach. So Rabbi Yechon would say, no. If you look at our Mishnah says, you don't do it, which sounds like it's not Osir Midaraisa. It says you shouldn't do it. Sounds like it's only Durabanan. So if it's a Durabanan, the reason for that is Gzeras Oitzer, because that's a Durabanan violation. And who? Dain, because it's Gzeras Oitzer. And the other one is Daraisa. Right? And the other one is Daraisa. Right? And other Daraisa, Shapir Dami. But if you use bundles, really on a Daraisa level, would be okay. And Hassim over there in the Mishnah, which says you go ahead and if you dig out a haystack, ain't a sukkah, it says over there, it doesn't say ein mesachim ba. It says ein a sukkah. It's not a sukkah. Afilu di'evin midaraisa nami in a sukkah. It means even midaraisa, it's no good. So therefore, that case is daraisa, and our case is darabban. And Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, Schacha bechitzin zecharim kasheros v'nekevos psula. One can use arrows, right? Arrows, the male arrows. In other words, there's a little part sticking out. Those of your art school, there should be a picture in there, right? There's a picture, right? The left side, the only picture over there. So a little part, when you put the arrowhead out, it's sticking out. That's zecharim because it sticks out, right? So that is sheira. That you can use as schach. But the female ones, the ones with the hole in that you insert the arrowhead in there is psula. So because the one that's male, there's no receptacle. It doesn't hold anything. Therefore, it's not makabel tuma. The female one, the one that has a hole in it, is makabel tuma. So Zacharim Sheira Pshita, it's obvious. Some other thing, what just said these are Nigzar Zacharim out in the cave. Maybe say no, the male ones are no good because if you allow you to put the male arrows out, you might do the females. Kamashman, that's okay. And in the kavos, Psula Pshita, also the case in the kavos is also obvious, right? Since it has receptacles, makabel tuma, obviously you can't use it as your schach. So Ma'adatim just said base kibo asulamalas loshmei kibo, something that you fill in once permanently, and that's it. Where you put the arrowhead in and it's done. Maybe I would say that it would be okay for schach. Kamash Malon, that it is no good. All right, Shkoyach, we'll stop here. Shkoyach, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. Everyone have a